Hello and welcome back to BGTV.
Oh, what a finish! Beautiful goal.
In the wake of the Brighton Hove Albion game, Paul Pogba's agent, Mino Raiola, gets into a war of words with Paul Scholes. This is really unbelievable. I've never in my life before seen an agent get into a war of words with a club legend of the club that his client is currently at. But this is the weird world we live in with Twitter, and when you have people like Mino Raiola around, unbelievable. Now look, Paul Scholes has been probably one of the harshest critics of Manchester United since he's retired. Can you blame the man? I don't think so. I think Paul Scholes perhaps sometimes is overly negative, but I think it's because things at United haven't been going well. I think his job. He is now a football pundit, and his job is to give his opinion, his professional opinion, as a football analyst, and I think he's doing that. And he has to be honest in his job. Have United played well? No. So why should he be saying anything other than the truth? And yes, he's been harsh with Paul Pogba, but only because having played with Paul Pogba, as he said before, he expects a lot of him, and he knows how much talent and how much potential he has. And so when he sees a player not living up to that, of course, he's going to come under criticism. Paul Scholes was part of the most successful team in the history of the club, and the most successful era in the history probably of English football, of any team. Obviously, you're right up there with Liverpool in the 60s and 70s, and especially the 80s, but whatever. The point is that Paul Pogba comes out post-game, Brighton and Hove Albion, saying that, Paul Scholes rather, comes out criticizing Pogba, saying, he's so inconsistent. Basically saying the same thing that Jose Mourinho accused Pogba of. Which, if you remember in the rant video, I said there is actually some truth to what Jose said, despite the fact that he probably shouldn't have said it, because he's his manager and not a pundit, being paid by TV to analyze his own players. Anyway, Mino Raiola comes out, and look at the tweets on screen right now, and it says basically Paul Scholes is speaking for fear of being forgotten, and that he should keep quiet, and that Paul Scholes next should instruct Manchester United to sell Paul Pogba, advise United to sell Paul Pogba, and how he would have sleepless nights trying to find his client a new club. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? What is this? What is this, fam? Is this career mode? Like some crazy drama that just plays out? Like, this is insane, man. Like, what is this shit? Gary Neville gets in on the act too, and he mentions Pogba in the tweet, saying, I hope Paul Pogba does the right thing and shuts his agent up. Look, this is outrageous. This is ridiculous. Paul Pogba deserves the criticism because against Brighton, he was absolutely shit. He was absolutely shit. And his performance deserved to be criticized. And yes, he is inconsistent because against Leicester, he was winning all the plaudits. And Pogba himself after the game admitted that his attitude wasn't right. I mean, how a professional player of his caliber can come out and say that his attitude wasn't right. He's got a lot of stake and come under a lot of criticism for coming out and saying that. And rightly so. How does a World Cup winner go into a game and, it's just making the point exactly clear that what Mourinho said, it just serves to prove the point about how Pogba for a big game can get up, first game of the Premier League season against Leicester, I've been given the armband, highly motivated, and then Brighton and Hove, he can't produce the same level of performance. So, I don't know, man. I think it's really crazy for Raiola, and I think it's unprofessional conduct for Raiola. I think he's put his client in a really uncomfortable position. Paul Scholes is a club legend. And he's been at odds with Mourinho. He's been at odds with pretty much every single manager who's come in because he's been so vocal and so scathing in his criticism of Manchester United in the past 5-6 years under Fergie. 5 years. But, I think rightly so. As a fan and as someone who loves the club, he's going to be critical. And I think for a player's agent to come out accusing Paul Scholes of fearing being forgotten, are you having a laugh? Paul Scholes, one of the greatest players of his generation, not just English players, but one of the greatest players of his generation, admired by great players to play this game. Zinedine Zidane, Xavi, Iniesta. We can go through the list of players who have literally said that they see Paul Scholes as a role model, as a reference. So to come out and say that Paul Scholes is speaking for fear of being forgotten, Raiola, shut the fuck up. Do your job. Make sure your client is performing to the best of his ability on the field. And leave club legends like Paul Scholes alone. I agree with Gary Neville. I hope Pogba tells his agent to do as much. This drama is just, for me, crazy. And a Manchester United player and his agent have no business behaving in that manner at all. Let me know what you think in the comments below. That's it for BGTV for this installment. I'll see you in the next one.
Oh, what a finish!